Today, I sit down with Imari and Marco to discuss open relationships and non-monogamous lifestyles. Marco is in an open marriage with his wife, and he has a child, while Imari is in an open relationship with his partner. They help set the scene of what is essentially an open relationship for dummies podcast episode and share what it's actually like. They help others release the shame for having what they call the natural instincts and feelings of, well, why am I still attracted to other people if I'm in a relationship? We cover the topics of jealousy and fear, which are rooted in the common questions when they tell people they're in open relationships. These are you afraid of losing your partner to someone else? Or doesn't it make you feel like you're not enough? Marco and Imari challenge us to think about the norms that have been taught to us on monogamy and whether following those societal norms is because you've been taught those or because that's actually how you want to design and live your life. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
How are you doing? Can you make this?
I'm good. How we doing?
Marco. We're alive and well as far as I know, but we are in Mexico, so the Wi-Fi has been a little spotty. So just keeping you up to date. But this is Marco.
Hi, Marco. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm alive again. As Imari said, that's like the key phrase for us right now is like, we're living. This is good. That's a good thing. The pulse check is still running, veins still moving, heart's still pumping.
Still going. Nice. So when I was researching this topic before we came on, I actually, full disclosure, this is something that's really new to me, and I couldn't believe what a world I feel like I've been so blind to. So I kind of want to teach, not so much teach, but I want this to be like a non-monogamy for dummies. Can we first begin by, before jumping in, be a little bit about yourself, and a little bit about you, and then perhaps your relationship status, and then we can switch it up and dive into that.
Okay. I'm Marco Hansel. There's not a new phrase for single and ready to mingle. Would be like open and down for some poking. But yeah, I have a really eclectic set of things that I love doing, everything from making music, from poetry, to coaching and facilitating. I'm a recovering multi-millionaire CEO in technology world, and I've had a pretty wide range of experiences, particularly when it comes to sort of non-traditional thinking as a whole. And the most recent thing, which we're going to talk about today, is my relationship. So I am in what me and my partner call a free relationship. And in that free relationship, my partner and we have a child as well. And we essentially construct the rules of our relationship. It's been this way since the very beginning. And we have the openness to be able to date other people. We have the ability to know that the agreement in the relationship is only that we are here for each other's joy, regardless of if that joy means that the other person wants to be with someone else. And it's
yes. And a lot of people, we're going to unpack that, because a lot of people are going to listen to this and not understand, because we've had years of conditioning of love stories. What it's supposed to look like.
Yes,
Mari's shaking his head. All right, nodding in agreement, not shaking. So Mari, tell us a little bit about you.
Oh man. I'll piggyback off of something that Marco said, because I think that it's something we share. And that is, I have always been fascinated with alternative ways of thinking. I think that for me, as a child, I was just always so curious. This is going to sound corny, but I was always like, why? Why do we have to do it that way?
Yeah.
Why does it have to look this way? Why can't I do this? And to me, nobody ever gave very good answers, except because everybody else does it. And to me, I was like, as a child, I'm like, the logic of this just doesn't seem very cohesive, And so, I've taken that curiosity and I've, expanded it into my relationships. I've expanded into my careers. another thing that me and Marco have in common is that we're both coaches, right? So we both facilitate workshops, we both do public speaking, we both help people move through life transitions. And I think that that's not a coincidence that we share both the coaching and a penchant for alternative ways of thinking. Because I think that when somebody wants to change their life, what they first need to do is challenge the way that they've been thinking, because the thinking is going to be at the root of the habits, that the habits are going to be at the root of the lifestyle is going to be a result. Like, it just keeps going on and on. So in order to do something different, one must start thinking differently and challenge themselves in new ways. So
that was a great intro.
I was thinking it with you because yours was fire. I was like,
Can we do mine again?
No, you were both good. You're both good. So whoever wants to take this away, what is non-monogamy?
Well, I mean, I guess I'll summarize it in the very simplest form. It's like the ability to have more than one partner. That's it. Yeah. Okay. So like in monogamy, the concept is that it's you and one other person, and that's it. There's no like outside play, nothing like that. And that would be like the strictest form of non-monogamy, because there's people that, probably still consider themselves monogamous that also play, right? Like might be like, oh, and then we swing from time to time, things like that. But the main structure of their relationship is, well, when it comes to who I love, who I am connecting with, creating deep relationship with, like all of that, it's this one person, it's you and me.
Okay.
I love that you had to start with definitions, because I think the way that we use language is so imperative. I'm going to skip forward like 8 chapters real quick and just throw a thought in.
Yeah.
It's 101. 101.
I think it's I personally don't use the term like non-monogamy, polyamory that often, but I do use open relationships as a term. And I think for me, it helps me to mentally reference how I relate to this whole culture, which is the idea that, like Marco said, it's just that we're open to different conversations.
Yeah, I love that.
Right? Yeah. It's like, it's not, oh, I'm open to just having sex with everybody. I'm open to the conversation that you might be attracted to this person. I'm open to the reality in which we might go to a sex party. I'm open to, and I think, as I mentioned in my intro, my mind has always been open as a child. So I feel like to put myself in any kind of situation where I am like forced to close off what possibilities could be feels so out of integrity with me as a human being.
I love that you brought that up, and because I want to add something on that. What Imari is speaking into clarifies a bit about the definition I said. Right now, me and Anna, for all intents and purposes, we've been what looks like a monogamous couple for a while, right? Like I haven't been dating anybody else. She hasn't been dating anybody else for a few months or whatever. But what Imari just said is like the layer is that there's the openness, there's the willingness to be open to that. So you might meet a polyamorous couple and be like, looks like you guys are just monogamous, or an open couple. Guys are just with each other. We're like, no, I mean, we are with each other in this moment that you're experiencing us. And we are open to the possibility of being with other people as well.
Yeah. So what did that conversation with your partner look like? Were you in a free, what do you call it? A free relationship?
Yeah, relationship. Yeah.
Relationship. Was that from the very beginning? I think I heard you say, so did you come up with that together, or was this something that was a part of you before you met?
It was actually from the very beginning. And ironically, you actually got such a beautiful group of people on this casting, because Imari is partially responsible.
Oh my God. All right. Okay.
I was waiting for that to come up.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought about that. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Because we like he was in a relationship with another person, Vero. And at the time, I had been going through this transition in my life where like I was starting to question everything about my identity in a beautiful way. I was like, I was considering leaving my company at the time. And I was just like, man, like there's so much newness out here once I start getting rid of these like fixed identity stories. And a girl that I'd been dating at that time told me, she was like, Marco, like, you're polyamorous. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, like you just really love everybody. And like you're supposed to be like out there in that way. And as she started describing it, right, the first thing, honestly, in my mind, stereotypes came up of like old white hippie people. I'm like, that's not me. Like, that doesn't sound like my group, right? I'm like, that's like, those people do that. And then Imari and Vero were there. And I was like, this is young, cool couple.
Not white.
They're doing, yeah, no, they look more like me, like, and they're doing this thing, like, let me talk to them. So I had the first conversation I had with his ex-partner, Vero, and I was talking to her about the concept and, you know, what she thought about it and everything. And it just made so much sense to me. I was like, of course, this sounds like what I've always been doing or wanting to do. And I just never really knew the words of how to express it and how to explain it. And admittedly, there was a part of me that was like, it was tied to the heart of it, right? And then another part of me that saw like, almost like the logic of it, that was just like, this makes logical sense. And if you're open for this, it was like, I started thinking about the way that we do relationship normally. I was like, well, so, you know, normally I date somebody and I'm like, oh man, I'm starting to get to know her. This feels like this is going really good. Like, you know, maybe a half a year goes by, a year goes by. I'm like, she's really the one. And then like we break up, right? And then after we break up, I'm like, well, you know, she wasn't the one, but I learned a lot from her. Like, it's really going to help me with the next person. And then I date another person and I go another year, 2 years. I'm like, now this one is the one, and we break up, right?
Yeah.
Then the cycle continues. I find another girl and I'm like, man, but now I've learned so much. I grab another person and we date for 2 years, 3 years, maybe we get married. And 70% of the time, what happens? We get divorced.
Yeah.
And now,
is it 70% now?
It's like 70%. It's insane. Like, so like,
oh my God.
Now you don't quote me on that. I'm just saying numbers. But now imagine this, right? So this is like this linear timeline of like maybe 8-9 years of learning and growth. And I literally in that moment imagined, I was like, wait, so polyamory would be like just stacking it. Now I'm having all those experiences, that growth and those learnings, but instead of me waiting like, cool, this is the Jennifer phase, and this is the Amber phase, and this is the Lauren phase. I'm like, this is just the me exploring relationship phase. And I'm learning so much about myself from different kinds of relationships. And what would happen a lot of times, I realized this, and this happened in my relationship a lot, when I'm with one person, right? We can become an echo chamber so quickly. So in that echo chamber, it's like, we think that our problems only exist with us. The problem I have with her is because it's her fault. When I start seeing that, wait, I'm dating 3 different people and they're all saying the same shit about me, I start learning things way faster. I can get different perspectives and I can find out more about what I truly desire from seeing how I interact with different kinds of people. It's, oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's my story.
Nice. So one thing I want to like hone in on, you said the word polyamorous, and just for the listeners, because what is that?
Yeah.
We're like,
Go ahead.
Okay. So let's break down the word. Poly means multiple. Amor means love. So it means one who is capable of multiple loves, having multiple loves in one's life, right?
That was so beautiful. Damn. Okay, keep going.
You practice that before.
Not at all. Yeah, I think that, I don't know, like, I don't think I would be me or we would be us if we didn't have this podcast without saying anything spicy. So I'm just going to go ahead and say there is a part of me, feel free to prove me wrong, that I'm like, I feel like everybody is polyamorous.
Oh, bro, yes.
But let me not stir the pot too much.
No, I think, and by that, do you mean that everyone has these thoughts and feelings, but they put the rules on themselves because that's what we're taught to do?
Yes. Somebody will somebody will confuse their nurture for their nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be like, this is the way I was taught since I was born,
Yeah.
and this is must be therefore who I am. And
Yeah.
I think that is not necessarily the case. And I think that, you know, I personally don't have an agenda to make every single person in the world polyamorous. It's not a pillar I want to die on. I am committed to the idea that everybody is willing to look at themselves and ask questions and see if maybe they have chosen lifestyles, realities, and habits that aren't actually theirs.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Something that Imari brings up is also a huge distinction for me, because I think in relationship, me and my partner deal with this a lot. The concept of me loving somebody else, right, doesn't mean that I also treat that person the exact same way, do all the same things with them, like every single thing that I imagine in a relationship has to be exactly the same. So I think there's something that people conceptually use to try to separate themselves from like the monogamous versus poly versus open world. Is like, yeah, you know, but like I married this person, I am committed to this person, I'm making a child with this person. Does that mean that like your body, your emotionality is incapable of loving somebody else? Like, does it like, and that's the part where I start getting into the practicality of like, do you have one friend? No, right? Did you like, okay, cool, I got my friend quota is done. Like, I can't have any more friends. It's impossible for me to have any friends. Do you have one hobby?
Yeah.
No. Like, do you have one favorite TV show? No. It's like, so why is it that there's this world where there's this one thing that for some reason, the only way that it's true is if you only love that person? You love your whole fucking family. But when it comes down to romantic love, it's like, you better only love that one. And then even this, because this is something that came up for me a lot, I would punish myself. This is why I started realizing how natural it was for me to feel this. I would punish myself when I would feel attraction to other people. I'd be like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not fitting into the qualifiers of what true love is supposed to be? Because when I have true love, I'm not supposed to even see other people as interesting. And think about that. It's like, wait, so the perspective of other people is that the other people are just being them, being the awesome people that they already are. I just got into a relationship with somebody. Those people are still awesome. They don't suddenly not become awesome because I'm in a relationship with someone else. It just means that I may choose not to also create a baby with them or choose not to marry them. But it doesn't mean that I don't see those same attractive qualities or even identify attractive qualities that I see within my partner in other people. That is like, oh gosh, such a thing.
I think that's a really important thing for people to hear though, because I think you're being very brave in talking about this, because a lot of people do feel that shame and they're like, they find someone attractive and you try and train yourself. No, don't look at that person. Don't find them attractive. What's wrong with me? Like you're saying, but it is natural and it is instinctive, and to not judge yourself and release yourself from that guilt of knowing that actually you're fighting against a really natural instinct.
Yeah.
You are fighting against 10,000 years of biological evolution. Good luck.
Good luck.
You really think that's gonna happen?
No, one thing, and maybe you guys know about this a little bit more. I was watching, do you know Explained on Netflix? Okay.
Yeah.
They have this episode on monogamy, and how it began. And it was so interesting because it said it all derives. Apparently it all derives from land ownership. And because, but you know, for thousands and thousands of years, you know, we were all just sleeping with each other in tribes, whatever. But
everybody,
then
you didn't know whose kid was whose.
Yes, exactly. Which is why it was like it takes a village to raise a child. And nobody cared. Yeah, it wasn't like, well, that's your kid. But then when it became about land, everyone started living on their own, and it was something to do with like when you married someone, it was actually like getting ownership of land and things like this. Am I explaining this properly?
Yeah, 100%. It was a transaction.
So one more thing I wanted to add to that, by the way, because then I listened to, so I've been doing my homework. So then I listened to this TED Talk of this woman who then took it from that and then added this another thing that blew my mind. And she was like, so then it goes from so it goes from non-monogamy of how we were for generations and thousands of years to monogamy, to own land and ownership. And then people weren't, so at that point, people weren't marrying for love. They were marrying to own things. But now we're in a society where people do choose to marry for love. Whereas before, you were married, and to get love, you would have to have an affair. You would have an affair to get with someone who you love or who you're attracted to, right? Now we choose love, and now there's the pressure on that to find the one. And then it turned into this fairy tale of an idea of the one.
Something that comes up, which is related to what you just said and what Imari was talking about choosing from your view of what you want. Something that's happened for me is me and my partner. So we have a platform called Free Relationship, right? And ironically, the majority of the people that we support in the Free Relationship are in monogamous relationships. But the funny thing is that the reason why the stuff that we end up supporting them with is so valuable is nothing that we talk about is related to like, here's why you should love multiple people. It's more about like, here's why you should be free to paint the kind of relationship that you truly want, not confined by what you think the limitations are, what your parents said you're supposed to do, or what you believe society says you're supposed to do. So I think that the thing that comes up for me a lot is, if somebody decides powerfully that they want to marry and be with this one person for the rest of their lives, and they're like, this is what feels true to my heart, and like, go do that, right? That just may not happen to be mine. But if you are sitting in a position where you're saying, this is what I'm doing because I have no other choice, and this is the way it's supposed to be done, and
this
my
is
family's
how I
not going to
prove that I love them,
that I live by marrying them. I'm like, that's the part where I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like that's authentic to what you truly desire, right? So if you broke down a lot of how, even me and my partner got to the kind of relationship we created, it was never driven from like, we're going to date multiple people and we need to have a quota of 6 dates of different people per month. It was just like, we're just going to be free to do and decide the rules as we go. And if those rules include like, hey, I really like this other girl, or hey, I like this guy, like, yeah, I should date them, right? And at any moment, we're checking in with each other. And essentially, I would say this one key thing here. I've told her, she was in a past relationship, was in marriage. And it was a 12-year marriage. And ironically, the thing that I've mentioned to her is, I'm like, I feel more committed in the relationship with you than I have felt in any other monogamous relationship, because every single day, we are waking up choosing to choose each other, not based on some construct that's holding over us of like, oh, we're boyfriend and girlfriend, so until we break that, here are the rules and boundaries of it. I'm like, I can wake up and be like, hey, that Jessica, she's pretty cute, right? All right? I'm like, oh, hey, Jessica. Like, and because I have that freedom, what that means and what that gives me and what that provides her is like, we're truly accepting 100% of us. So like, whatever comes out, whatever I'm desiring is like, hey, I'm there with you until the thing that you desires conflicts with what I desire, right? And as long as we're checking in with that, then there might be a point where it's like, hey, Marco, you dating 7 different girls, like, doesn't feel good to me. And then we'll have that conversation. But there's not a preset, here's what you can't do.
Yeah. A question for you then, because I know a lot of people will be listening and thinking, I could never do that because I wouldn't feel like that person, like it would make me feel like I wasn't enough. How do you address that kind of feeling that comes up for someone?
Jessica, how real do you want to get on this podcast?
Real, baby. Yeah. Let's go.
Okay. I have been dating someone for about 6 months. Yeah. And at the beginning, when I started dating this person, I was also dating 2 other people, right? So it was very much like, okay, like very casual, like sexually explorative, adventurous, fun, et cetera, right?
Yeah. Wait. I'm sorry. Just to note, what you just described is like what every monogamous person does, but just doesn't say.
Yeah.
I'm like, y'all are dating multiple people until you choose
until
the
you
person.
say that.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. When someone says, do you want to be official?
Yeah, what does that even mean? All right, let me not.
Go ahead.
So we're all in polyamorous relationships until we're official.
Until we wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. So ridiculous. Okay, so I've been dating this person for about 6 months, right? And at first there was other people involved because that's just the timing of how things happen, right? I was already with other people, yada, yada, yada. And then those 2 other people kind of fell off and it was just me and her for a minute, right? So we really dove deep into what we were relating around and we started connecting more and it became more intentional of an experience, right? But meanwhile, she's like, I know Imari is polyamorous. I know he's open relationships. So like, I know that is a conversation that is still open. And I know that if he goes out, like there is a likelihood that he can say, hey, I met somebody, right? I'm about to get real.
Ooh, I already know where you're going.
You know exactly where I'm going. And so there's been this premise of, okay, she's in a relationship with a guy who is in an open mindset, right? Conceptually. And then last week, that all changed. Or I should say that went from conceptual to tangible because I started hanging out with somebody else. Me and this person engaged sexually and my partner, we ended up talking about it. And like these kind of conversations came up. I was like, okay, well, tell me, how are you feeling? And she's like, yeah, part of it is like, I do feel threatened in a way. Amazing. What else are you feeling? I am feeling like I hold resentment towards this person. Cool, great. Let's talk about it. And literally, like the premise wasn't like, oh my God, I've done something wrong, so we have to shut off this conversation or I have to hide it. It was like, oh, wow, we have an experience. We have a shared experience. Can we talk about how we're going to relate around it? Right. And because we're able to talk about it, now me and her having amazing conversations around it, just because she feels an emotion doesn't mean all of a sudden all possibilities are cut off. Literally yesterday, her and the girl that I ended up sleeping with went on a walk to the park and talked about it and had open conversations around it. And today they just went, they just got coffee together and it was amazing. It's
like the best of friends.
Yeah, like the best of friends.
Sounds like it's gonna get real fun for you, Imari.
Keep your voice down. Keep your voice. I do what I can. And what's interesting is like things could be worse. And what's interesting is like somebody will have like they'll do exactly what you just said. They'll hear what we're talking about. They're like, I would feel jealous.
Yeah.
I would feel resentment. I would feel less than. Cool, great. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what we're allowed to talk through the emotion. You know, and we're allowed to understand where you're coming from. Is that a boundary for you, or is that a reaction, or is that programming from society? And guess what? I can tell you with certainty, the people that I love in this like intimate romantic way, they know that I love them, right? I make it clear how I feel about somebody, right? So like, if I'm going to go sleep with somebody last week, I'm going to tell you, hey, this is how I felt about that person. This is how that happened. And like, as a reminder, I know this could maybe stoke in some jealousy in you. And I want you to know how fucking important you are to me.
Yeah.
And how that moment doesn't actually affect anything between us. And if it did, then we would talk about it. But open relationships, at least the way that I do them, promote communication, which is not proprietary to open relationships. But there is so much expectation around monogamy. There's so many rules and regulations that already come with it that they almost give you permission not to have hard conversations. Because I'm assuming and I'm expecting you don't find anybody else attractive. I'm assuming
an agreement.
Yeah. It's like, well, we're married, so all of your biological processes, they're turned off, right? Like you don't find it's like, I don't know about that.
Ooh.
So one thing this has just reminded me of is when I was listening to another episode on non-monogamy, they were talking about, because you just said jealousy is like, it's about emotions that come up. And just because that emotion is coming up, it doesn't mean like, for example, they were saying when you have friends, and if you're jealous of your friends, that's something you need to work on. Like you can't be a jealous person at the office or with your friends, but in a relationship, for some reason, someone's jealousy, it seems to be the partner's obligation to conform to that jealousy. Oh, my partner's very jealous, so I can't do that.
As if that's like an emotion
Yeah.
that's so justified that it's like
we can't heal through that. We can't grow through
Yeah.
that.
So what you're saying is, yes, you can be jealous, but let's work on that. Why are you jealous? And work through that rather than being like, okay, I need to adjust my actions because you have this feeling of jealousy, which limits me.
Right.
And I'll give you an analogy that I love. It's actually this comic, Liz and Molly on Instagram, that drew a perfect picture of this. They were talking about healthy conflict resolution, right? And on one picture, it showed unhealthy, and it was me facing another person and this problem in the middle, right? We'll call that problem jealousy. Like, I'm jealous of this, and we're right here. And the other one, when they said healthy conflict, was me and the other person facing the problem that's over there. Hey, there's that jealousy thing over there. Let's look at that. Like, so what can we do about that? And that's the way that like me and my partner deal with problem. And I'll tell you, this is really interesting because I bring this same energy into the way I handle business. Like it's not, so I think similar to what Imari was saying, like this is not exclusive to like open relationships. It's like, hey, if you want to be a healthy problem solver, you're the kind of person that can sit and objectively say, hey, so this jealousy issue that we as a team are dealing with, let's talk about that. Let's talk about where that's coming from. Let's talk about how I can support you with it. Let's talk about what you need. Like all of those things, that becomes an open conversation. I think that similar to what he said about so many of those conversations end up not happening because you're creating what I've called a false sense of security in monogamous relationships. There's a set of rules and assumptions about things that you're not thinking about, things that shouldn't be a problem, and things that you're not allowed to have conversations about because you would be being a bad monogamous person if you had a conversation about, hey, so Susie, was really seeing your friend Jennifer, and I was thinking like, she's really hot. And I was imagining I want to have sex with her. That's a conversation that like probably I'd say good, like 90%, I'm just going to throw out there, 90% of monogamous men are probably like terrified to like, I'm not going to mention that shit to my girl and tell her I think her friend is hot. Right. But it's something they'll just think and they'll just keep inside of them. And this is something I love giving this analogy. It's like what happens in conflict is like there's a little seed that gets planted. This is two people that are together. And for readers that can't, or listeners that can't see me, my two hands planted together going in a straight line. And then when the moment that there's something that comes up, whether it's a seed of jealousy, a seed of desire, a seed of something that's going seemingly off the beating path from whatever it is we've agreed to, there's a 1 degree separation, right? And over time, as that separation continues, that 1 degree that's off track grows and grows and grows and grows and grows until all of a sudden you're 50 degrees off from each other and it blows up. And that explosion can be an affair. That explosion can be, I just can't take it anymore. That explosion is like, I've been holding this in for so long. And it's like, if you address those things and communicate it often, then you'd be making little 1 degree corrections. And it would never need to be this big built up thing. But when I don't feel safe to share my emotionality, to share my feelings, because it goes against the rules of the relationship, I hold it in until I can't take it anymore. Or I find a different outlet that's a negative or toxic outlet to actually expend it.
Wow. I'm gonna let that sink in for a minute. Wow. This is why we're having you guys on. This is honestly, I feel like my whole concept is just expanding so much. So
our goal is to recruit you.
So I wanted to talk about the idea that you said in the very beginning, I think you said this in the very beginning, that relationships, non-monogamy relationships are all different. This idea that everyone should design their own ideal relationship. What do rules look like, or do you have any rules? Like, I guess we'll start with you, Marco. Do you and your partner have rules that you guys follow?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, our rules are very like foundational and value driven. So they're less like, here are the 5 things you can't do, and more of like, here's the spirit and intention that we desire to follow with whatever decisions we're making, right? So like we have a whole like mantra that we say together, like, our intention is to create a spiritual relationship, life and thriving world filled with unconditional love that embodies everyone's inner joy while being grounded in integrity, authenticity, and existing in harmonious flow, right? And from that, there's a whole set of core values of like our honesty, our love, our communication, our intentionality, like all of that roots the decisions we're making. So instead of me necessarily having here are the 10 things that Anna needs me to do, it's more, here are the things I get to think about as I'm making a decision and saying, does this fall in line with the values that we've agreed to? And we've had lots of discussions about what honesty means to her, what honesty means to me, what communication and open communication means to her, what it means to me. So we've gone through those values enough where we have a good understanding of what our expectations are of each other on how we uphold those values. So when I make any decision, I put that lens on and I say, does this feel like something that would be in line with the way that we've set our values up? Yep. Okay, cool.
Great.
Good to go, right?
Moving forward.
And when in doubt, what do? I go talk to Anna. Like, so it's like literally becomes a real-time thing. It's like, hey, Anna, like I'm feeling this kind of way about this particular situation or about this person. And, here's what I'm desiring. Like, how do you feel? So it becomes this continual theme where we're checking in and revising what we feel and what feels safe for us continually. So then now even the idea of the rules become this flexible container that's shaped in every situation. So like maybe Anna might say something like, hey, like I'd like it for you not to have sex with this person right in front of me, right? It might be that, but like that may not be, that's doesn't become like a universal rule as much as just like in this particular moment with this situation, like this is what I'm feeling. Right. And we can address that and we can shape through those feelings. And, that might be something specific to this person, to this situation. But because I'm including her in my experience and she's including me in her experience, we have that ability to be this like almost like one mind. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I find interesting, and maybe I've totally misidentified this, but you, Marco, you sound like with your partner, she is your primary partner. Is that correct? Am I using that term correct? And for listeners out there, primary is like, actually, you explain it, Marco.
I love how much vernacular definitions.
So can you explain, either one of you, that what I just asked?
Yeah. I think, as with everything else in open relationships, it is determined by the relationship. Right? So for me, when I have a primary partner, it's someone that I am moving forward with the expectation that this is probably who I'm gonna have kids with.
Yeah.
I think if somebody wants to have kids with multiple people, great, fantastic. Sounds expensive. For me, not because of like societal programming, but more so just out of efficiency, I only want to have kids with one person, right? So therefore, like anything that relates around that subject would be directed towards this person, right? Like I'm gonna move in with somebody, it would be with this person, right? Again, I believe, want, and trust that it looks different for everybody in an open relationship. I think the point of this, like, I love how we use definitions and words, but I think the entire point of all of this is redefining everything to what it means for you, right? And one thing I just want to add onto what Marco just said, and I feel like I've said this multiple times because I've done multiple things with Marco by now. I think we stand. No, I didn't mean that in a sexual way. Okay, so I think that me and Marco, Anna, and all the kind of people in our immediate sphere stand in a privileged position because we've taken the time and gone through the effort and done the programs that give us a lot of self-awareness to communicate these kind of things. Right. And I'm not saying that to make us better than anybody else, but I know what it's like to like have a feeling come up and I don't yet have the words or the tools to navigate it, understand it, or do something with it. So I think that when Marco says like, oh, you're having jealousy come up. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Where is that coming from? How do you feel about that? Why do you think that? What insecurity is that? Like, not everybody has the capacity to ask those questions. Not everybody has the training to answer those questions. So I want to put that out there, that if this is sounding very easy,
thank you.
That's not the case.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
And it's worth it, right? Like, it's very much worth it. When I was talking to you about my situation with my partner and the girl I was with last week, 2-3 hours ago, I went on a walk with that other person, like, and we just had to talk. I was like, hey, how are you feeling? And we both came to the conclusion, like, our priority is my partner's feelings right now. We both want them to develop their own relationship and friendship outside of, like, this is just the girl that Imari slept with, right? And I think that takes a, unfortunately, uncommon amount of self-awareness. And I think that everything we're talking about right now takes self-awareness. From the beginning, I think it takes self-awareness to say, like, I think I actually am capable of being attracted to multiple people. And I also have the awareness to not make that bad about myself. I have the awareness to not shame myself for that. I have the eloquence and the confidence and the self-awareness to communicate that to my partner. I have the trust to talk about that with my partner. Like, we're asking quite a bit here, you know?
Encourage to step out into something different.
100%.
Yeah.
So again, that's why I don't think this is a conversation of, like, how can we convert the world to polyamory? I think
to the next episode.
I think it's just like for the
tune in next week.
The sequel. I think it's like, it's more so to the younger Imaris, the people who are always like, why am I always feeling like this? Why is there no, like, speaking to those people, the people who want to design their lives by themselves, who are aware that there are some kind of societal structures and institutions in place that don't actually mesh with and create the results that they want in their life. Like, here is just something alternative that you can try.
Yes. And I just wanted to say, like, I honestly think it's very brave of you guys to, one, live your life this way, like, authentically, and I think it's amazing. But to two is to talk about it, because I feel like there's so much shame about it, and like to even have these feelings, but to speak about it, what you're doing is you're releasing other people's shame, because they're like, oh my God, I'm not alone in this. And the whole point of this podcast is I can relate.
Which I love. Yeah, like that was a great thing. I mean, our bit of research on what you have is, I'm like, yes, I align 100% with that. And that's such a core principle to me about, like, sharing to support other people and feeling they have permission.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, you have permission to think differently, to be differently, like, and you're not alone in those thoughts.
I hear you when you acknowledge us for being brave on this. And for me, I'm like, it doesn't seem that crazy to me. I'm like, this just logically, emotionally makes sense, right? And again, I have the privilege of having done it for a couple of years now. I think that when we see other people do things or say things or think things, like Marco said, it gives us permission to do the same thing. And I think on a societal level, massively valuable. It promotes so much individual authenticity. But even honestly, like, somebody who's listening to me right now, who's in a monogamous relationship and finally has the courage to tell their partner, like, hey, I love you and I'm attracted to, you know, your best friend, you might be surprised. Your partner might be like, oh my God, thank you said it, because I think your cousin is so hot. Like,
no talk, crazy thing. So my ex, shouts out to her. She came into town and she actually told me this. She was like, Marco, she's like, I was trying to get you to try this polyamory thing way back when. And I was so fixed on, like, no, we have to be monogamous. Like she knew that about me before I even knew it. Right. But like the rules were so set in stone from my mind of what identity I'm supposed to be. And I'm like, no, these are the rules we have to follow. We have to do this way. And I'm like, I know I like her too, and I like your friend, and I like this person too. But no, that's bad. Like, crazy.
Isn't it profound to be so well understood by someone else? Honestly,
Yeah.
I literally will, like, breathe differently, and my boyfriend's like, what's going on in that head? I'm like, God, I don't know yet. I'm still processing it.
Yeah.
I think one thing that kind of opened my mind up a little bit when I was younger, and this is like the power of entertainment. I was reading a lot about like Afghanistan, and I found it really interesting that the men there had multiple wives. And it was the first time I thought about, oh, this is something that we've all kind of made up doing. Like everyone's doing it the way they want to do it. You know? Like I was like, not everyone in the world does this.
Not everyone
What?
does. Yes. Yeah. Some people are like, what? You only have one? I don't understand.
Damn.
It's gonna have sex with one person.
With one.
For the rest of your life.
But I remember thinking, that's so unfair. Why can't I have multiple husbands if he can have multiple wives? This is like literally at 15-year-old me thinking this. I'm like, damn, is there a country where women can all these husbands?
Yeah. And I mean, not to take this down a rabbit hole, but I think that there is like gender conversations to have as well. Like, you know, so many guys who I've told about my lifestyle, like, damn, bro, that's so killing it. You're killing it, bro. And then they'll be like, but she doesn't get to sleep with anybody else, right? And I'm like, I know. What?
Like, wait.
That doesn't, no.
Like.
Yeah, let's unpack that actually. So from like your partner's standpoint, does she feel as proud and comfortable as you do, both of you?
Yeah. Well, for me, I can, my partner is so amazingly open that I think she would already tell me that I have permission to sort of share a bit of her perspective, but sure. I'll put it into a more paraphrased way. She has been a mom. So we have a child that we birthed. And she also was in a marriage for 12 years. So her like program of like dating and being out there and everything is not only like physically not the same in terms of just her time and capacity, but mentally her own training has not put her into a place where she dates nearly as much as I do, right? So like I am in the relationship, the person that's more out there, but she has the openness to be in that space, and she's gone on a few dates, but hasn't gone to the level of depth that I have. She likes Imari.
Oh, you heard it here first.
To which brings up jealousy. Where is that coming from? But I think the thing that comes up for me is like, I remember even going through the process of feeling nervous about her being with other people and how that like threatened me. And I think this is like beautiful to what you asked earlier. Like we don't get into free relationships, open relationships, whatever, and just like suddenly we have like no ego and like we're told like, yeah, everything's cool. Like, yeah, go bang Joe, like whatever. Right. We're like, no, we feel the feelings because not only our natural programming, but also just what we think about ourselves, right? Like if we don't value ourselves enough, then we can feel like, oh, well, maybe that's the person you're going to leave me for. And like, I start feeling that threatening, right? And through the process of growing in my monogamy, growing in this non-monogamy, I've actually become excited about her meeting other people. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that guy, like he's fucking awesome. It'll be really awesome for you to connect, because I've realized that there is such an expansion of love that happens, right? That there's a certain expansive love that doesn't begin and end at what I can provide or what we can create together with just me and her. And I feel that when I'm with other people, so when I start tapping into this feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm with somebody else and I feel even more love for my partner. I've cracked the code. This is amazing. So love just continues to grow. It's not like a cup that's full of water and I just distributed 50% of it to you and 50% to you. And I'm like, okay, I got to take that back. Like I need to give some to her. Like it just keeps expanding. So like that expansiveness, I desire for her to feel that. I want her to bring that to the relationship. And I know that it will also bring jealousy from me. Right. But I'm willing to walk through that journey because the intention of the kind of world that I want to create is one where I'm not not only not restricting her joy based on my limitations, but where I'm not limiting myself in expanding my understanding and love of self by being able to walk through that path of jealousy and like my own feelings of inferiority. So it's just, yeah. So the people that are like, yeah, oh, no, but she can't do it. That's just another version of like, well, now you're just like a monogamous guy who's like just being greedy. Like, yeah, like you're just
being greedy.
Like you're not actually trying to face your shit like that. And that's why it's a different world when people step into the mold of like, oh no, it's open both ways.
Yeah. Are you doing this because you're trying to get laid?
Yeah.
Or are you doing this because you truly and honestly believe in your highest joy and your partner's
And your
joy?
partners and your
Ooh, that brings up a question for you, Amari. Is this for you guys? Is it strictly about sex or is it about relationships?
Not even close.
Mm-hmm.
Not even close. I would particularly say that we're two relatively good-looking guys, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes. I love how you both look at me. Yes, they are, everybody.
Confirmation from the audience. Like, sex is great. We've had plenty of sex.
Yeah.
Like, the novelty of that is worn off.
Wow, speak for yourself.
All right, Marco is having better sex than I am. But like the novelty of like new connection, and the novelty of like understanding somebody completely new that I never, and understanding something new about myself, like that will forever hit way much more dopamine than the sex will.
New relationship energy.
Right, exactly. So sex is something that you do with that energy. Sex is not the energy, Yeah.
And a lot of people would find that even harder to swallow though, because some people might think, look, I'm fine if my partner wants to just go and bang someone, sex is sex. But if they start getting feelings for them, I'm gonna I feel like threatened by that.
Those are my feelings. Like
because like Marco was saying, there's a limit in the cup. There's only so much love to go around. Meanwhile, I'm like, I don't know where y'all got like your limits of love from.
My shit keeps expanding.
But mine is a massive reservoir, right? Like it doesn't stop. A thought I want to share, it might seem tangential, but I want to get off my chest. It's almost like in monogamy, it's like, for better or worse, I'll love you so much forever. Under one condition, don't be attracted to anybody else. It's like, and if you do, then this love that we have is compromised. My desire and my intention and what I work on is so that I can create a love that is untouchable, that is so clear and understood that like somebody else coming in, I'm good.
Cool.
Like
you said, how do we reshape this?
I know you said you wanted to get real, so I'm gonna get real with you.
Please.
And like, I think in this lifestyle, you also find yourself at, alternative situations, whether those be sex parties, threesomes, foursomes, 17-somes, whatever.
17.
And there's been times where like, I've been at, one of these experiences and like my partner is with somebody else. And like, I'm sitting there feeling absolutely no sense of like, this mother, like, I'm just like, oh, man, look how happy she is.
Oh man, that's the shit right there.
And it's like
you're happy for someone else's joy.
Like for real. And like some, conservative dudes be like, oh, he's a cuck. I'm like, I'm like, she's getting an orgasm and I don't have to do no work. Like I'm so good. I got no problems. I'm like watching her in her joy and her happiness, The girl that I'm dating right now, like she is completely new to this lifestyle, right? Like I am her first introduction into the space. And we went to a sex party like a month or two ago. And I just got to witness her like notice her boundary and then push it a little bit. And then notice she was like, oh, I'm actually into this. And I'm just sitting there doing almost nothing. And I'm like, oh my, like this was the highlight of the night. Like just to witness somebody that I care about, somebody that I say I love, I get to witness them exploring themselves, discovering themselves, having joy. I'm like, what kind of secure person doesn't love that?
Oh, you know what it is, Imari? I think of it like the same way, and this is what's so interesting. The same way you would think about a legit, like like fucking best friend. Yeah, right. Like there's like, yo, you're proud of your friend.
Your best friend
for
tells
just
you get
doing
laid.
shit.
Yeah, like back
you're
in high school,
oh,
I'm
that's
like,
fucking
Marco, I got
great.
laid last night. You'd be like, yo, bro,
Yeah.
I love it.
You're not like why wasn't I included? Like and I think that comes down to a certain sense of security. Like if you've created a world where this person is only allowed to have joy if it's coming from you, right? Then you've made it all about you and not about, right?
Yes.
Not about having their experience. And when they can have the joy, they can have their experience and realize that you are not the source of that, it can simultaneously, for people that are listening, it might feel like, oh, well, now you're going to lose them. And it's like, oh, no. Now, actually, if you all are still connecting as they are finding this center of their joy, y'all gonna be together forever. I tell Anna, I'm just like, I don't even know what would cause us to break up, because I'm like, you find some new guy attractive, I'm like, great. Cool, like right. I find a new girl attractive, I'm like, great. Like I'm like, I don't, at what point would we decide to no longer create together? It really comes down to more practical things of like, we no longer want to create the same kind of life together, right? Like, oh, I want to go travel the world, like in like literal, like practical shit. I want to travel the world like every month, and you want to stay in one place. Okay, cool.
Logistically,
like
it just doesn't work.
Logistically, yeah, it may not work. So now we're adjusting our life. But did the love that I have for you, the desire that I have for you, did any of that change? Like, not really. Like, and it is a thing. The only way that it does change is because I have a conditional version of how I love. I love you when you are receiving your joy through me. Or do I love you as an independent individual who is exploring what she wants to explore that may not have anything to do with me, but I just get to be a container of like support for like, hey, go explore what you want to explore.
Back to the idea of like watching your partner with somebody else or whatever.
Yeah.
Like my joy for your joy is bigger than my sadness or hurt that I wasn't involved.
Yeah.
My joy for your joy is so much more exponentially higher than my hurt that I wasn't there, the one doing it. Because then that's like my perception is like about me, and it's like that's nothing to do with me. You had a great time, fantastic. Tell me about it.
And so vocab word for you, if you don't already have this one from your podcast, compersion.
Huh? Say it again.
So that one, it's called compersion. It's when you feel joy for somebody else feeling joy, for somebody else's love. Like, so yeah, you're feeling this energy of like, oh my gosh, like I love that they are being loved, that they are in another situation, and you're on the outside.
That is the entire opposite of jealousy. And I think a lot of people need, like, if you did the self-work, maybe people could get there. You, Marco, have a child. Are you open with your child about your relationships?
Oh, well, I mean, he's one.
Okay, fine.
Starting to understand.
I think, I mean, he has witnessed like me being with other people like while he's around, and I think, I mean, for him, he probably just like, cool, I have so many moms. Like, this is awesome. But yeah, like that, it's interesting because I have thought about that, like as he gets older, it's ironically, I've wondered like, oh man, is he gonna be like a hardcore monogamist, because he's like, I'm gonna do the opposite of what you guys, like children go through those rebel phases, like you guys are so open and so free, I'm all about one person, like
so true.
But yeah, no, I think that the same in terms of what I would like for him to follow is like the same thing we said, like following what's true to him.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not going to be teaching him like, here's how you become polyamorous, son. It'll just be like, something like, whatever you decide to do, like the world is your oyster. Like you paint the picture for, you see what daddy does, like you see what mommy does. Like that's not a like, here's the template, now you need to be like us, but just know that it's available to you.
That's beautiful. If there's anyone out there who is in like a monogamous relationship, but wants to perhaps consider like moving outwards, how would you suggest they go ahead having those conversations with their partner?
I know you're going to feel the tension. I know you're going to feel the fear, the anxiety. Are they going to leave me? at some point, your own authenticity has to become a priority.
Yeah.
For people who are in a non-monogamous relationship already, but are scared to come out to their family and their friends, what advice would you give to them?
Wow. Huh. What advice would I give to them for that? Well, I mean, I guess just really the advice I would give is almost more of an intention for you. It's like one part would just be still creating your own safety. I think is still very important and valuable. So like if you're in the situation where you're like, hey, like here's what I'm deciding in life, like you're not obligated to go and share details of everything with all your family members or whatever, if that's not an intention and desire in your relationship with them, right? Now, but similar to what Imari said, if that is something that's a core thing that is pulling at you, then there's not really much more to do than like, you got to leap and you got to do it. And like, in that leap, I think what I've found whenever I've taken those leaps, I've taken those jumps, whatever the fear was that I had about the situation, the result of me sharing, the result of me releasing that burden was always a greater value, right? And that may not mean that like those people will be accepting of you, but because you put it out, you are now accepting yourself. So you're creating the space of authenticity. And I've always said this, like authenticity creates authenticity. So when I am authentic with the people that I'm around, then their response, whether positive or negative, is an authentic response back to me about how they feel about me, how they feel about the situation I'm in. So now we can create something, right? Even if the thing we create is more distance while they're working through understanding what the fuck is this new fad you're on with your relationship. It's like, but it's like, hey, I'm either living in that authenticity or I'm running away from it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. Any final words that you wanted to share, Imari?
I have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
What time is it for you?
Marco is flirting with a monogamous woman on a public podcast. Jesus Christ. Seen it here first, folks. My question for you. I know you talk about all kind of different things that people don't normally talk about. Why this topic? What made you interested in highlighting?
Yeah. So I have a friend who I'm really close with, and her husband have started swinging recently.
Oh yeah.
And I've had a lot of my friends be like, "Oh my God, like that's so weird." And I was like, "What? That's not like the reaction like I was expecting." I was expecting people to be quite woke about it because our friendship group is very woke. So it was shocked me when everyone was like, "What?" And I was like, I don't know, it made me realize like, wow, even people who I consider quite progressive on this one topic seem very close-minded.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, that's thousands of years of programming and a couple of decades of Disney movies.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think in like 50 years there'll be a Disney movie that's like polyamorous love?
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
And there will be tons of protests.
Tons. Yeah.
Okay, guys. Thanks for having having me on. Hi, thanks for coming on.
This is such a breath of fresh air from the shit that we've been dealing with this past week. Like I was like, oh, this is such a cool conversation.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, enjoy Mexico. Have some tequila for me.
We will.
Cool.
We will.
All right.
Awesome.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you, Jessica.